Greetings viewers, if you click the video link, you already know what you're here for. Today we are going to be installing some suppressor optic height sights from Trijicon on this Glock 34 slide. Before we begin, I don't want to get your hopes up. The method that I'm going to demonstrate in this video is going to require you to have some tools on hand. One of them is going to be a front sight tool that's going to be used for that front sight nut. My recommendation would be to get the Glock one that is actually steel on the end here and it's magnetized to help hold onto your screw. Sometimes when you buy sights, it'll come with some cheapo little aluminum one that I've had actually bend and strip and tear up the head on it on the first use because the material that's on the end here is softer than the screw, so that screw just chews up the end of this and then it's unusable and you're stuck without an installed front sight. So highly recommend having a quality front sight tool for installation here, especially if you own multiple Glock pistols or there's a chance even a little bit that you may do this again in the future. So highly recommend having a quality front sight tool. I've used this to install over 100 sights at least, and it's still going strong. The other tool that I'm going to recommend, it's a little bit more expensive than this, is an actual dedicated rear sight tool. Now this particular one is designed specifically for Glock. Wheeler makes a really good one that is adjustable and usable for many other different brands. So if that thing existed at the time that I bought this and I knew better, I would have bought that so that I had the option to work on other guns. So unfortunately that's not the case. About 90% of my pistols are all Glock, so this works for me anyway. Again, some people might scoff at the price of buying something like this. I really don't remember what I paid for it exactly, but I know for a fact that over the years after purchasing it, I've used it for my own pistols, which I feel like is money back in my pocket that I'm not paying someone else to do it. As well, I've had a lot of friends that have paid me to change the sights out on their pistols. So I know that I've at least made my money back and then potentially some more by having this. So like I said, if you look at the price of one of these, you can definitely use it to your advantage and even make some money doing it, in buying it. So highly recommend using this. You can use a punch or a drift tool to knock your rear sight out. I do not recommend doing that. I'm not going to show you how to do that. So if that's what you're here for, you can watch somebody else's video. I'm not going to tell you to bash up your sights to install them. So we're going to do this properly. So let's go ahead and get set up. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the old sights. So front sight's super easy to remove. There's just turn it over and there is a nut on the other side. In this particular case, there's a hole here to get through the front of the slide. If you don't have an extended slide pistol, this is not going to be there, but you're still going to be able to reach it all the same. So all we're going to do is we're going to reach straight in there. There is a little nut that we need to put this on. You may have to wiggle it a little bit to get it to fit on there. Once we get it in there, I'm going to push towards it to keep contact, and I'm just going to turn it to the left. You should feel it unthreading. I'm going to put my finger over the front sight so it doesn't just fall off onto the floor. Like I said, it is magnetized, so it's going to hold on to the screw for you. And then this should just pop right out. You may have to wiggle it a little bit. That plastic kind of gets wedged in there some. So then now you just have an open hole on the front of your slide. So let's go ahead and get set up to remove the rear sight. All right, so I have this adjustment here. We're going to loosen this up because we have to slide the rails that the slide rides on onto that little plate there. And what we're going to do is we're going to push this in until that rear sight is the halfway point on this block up here. I don't want it all the way to the rear. I don't want it all the way to the front. I want to put it in the center. And once I'm in place, I'm going to tighten this down. And that's going to hold my slide in place so it's not going to move. Make sure it's nice and tight. So when you're installing or uninstalling Glock sights, I like to go one direction only. So typically I will go right to left. So when I uninstall this, I'm going to push it out to the left side. I'm going to reset this all the way to the other side, put my new sight in, and I'm going to push it in the same direction. Whether it matters or not, I don't have scientific evidence. I haven't gotten in there with a micrometer to measure and see if going back and forth, pushing sights in and out different directions actually wears it out. I can only imagine that it would. Anytime you have some hard substance rubbing against another one, something is going to lose eventually. So again, I just go to the right. So all I have to do now that that's locked in is I'm just going to crank this. And I'm not going to go super fast. I'm not hooking it up to a drill. I'm just giving it a turn and a turn and a turn. And I'm just going to keep doing that over and over again until that sight slides all the way out the other side. Now I've bottomed out my tool and the sight is just barely hanging on. So I'm just going to grab a hold of it. I barely have to do anything and it's going to drop free. So I now have my rear sight removed. So while we've got this locked in, I'm going to go ahead and do the rear sight first. So now I'm just going to turn this all the way back to the other end. And then I've got to get my rear sight out of the packaging. All right, so in this instance, there's little glue dots that are used in there to hold this in place. So the first thing I'm going to do is double check and make sure none of that's on there. I don't want anything that's going to interfere and cause an issue with my clearance. So just making sure that the bottom of this is clean, there's no issues. I want to make sure that I put this on the right direction. I have seen people put these in backwards. So in my instance, I know that I want to be seeing these white circles and the little tritium dots facing me towards the rear of the pistol. So pay very close attention that you don't put them on wrong, because it'll be the most perfect sight alignment you've ever seen in your life. They'll just be facing the wrong direction. So obviously the channel that the original rear sight came out of, we're going to be using that. So we're going to make sure we have to slot that in there. So it can be kind of a pain to get this started. So once I've got it in that slot, then I'm just going to try and do my best to hold it. And then I'm just going to do the same thing I did before. I'm not in a hurry to turn this thing. I'm turning it just a little bit at a time. If it's locked up and won't move, we're not forcing it and making it go and breaking stuff. So just turning it. It's moving smoothly now. Making sure that my sight is lined up still properly in the channel. And we're just turning. Once it's starting to feed in there properly, now I can let go of that and just pay attention to my tool and just continue to turn. Again, just a little bit at a time. All right, so once you're just about there, what you don't want to do is you don't want to crank it too far and then, oh, I went too far, and then crank it back and then back and back and back. So I would rather stop just short than go past it and again play that game. Because again, these sights are made out of a little bit tougher material than this little tiny piece of metal here that's attached to the original plastic sight. So again, we're rubbing hard metal on hard metal, something is going to lose, and I don't want it to be me. So I've got it to a point where I'm just about there. I'm going to give it a little bit more of a turn, and then I'm going to stop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to back this off until I'm not putting any pressure on either side, and I'm going to take my slide out. Now, you can use calipers if you want. I've done this enough that I can use my eyes and look at it. You can tell if there's even spacing on either side. The trick to doing that is you cannot have a light source coming from one side. You need either coming straight down or in a straight direction, because what will happen is a shadow from the sights will actually make it look like it's too far one way or the other. And again, you're going to be playing that back and forth game. So you want one light source, no shadows anywhere, and you want to be able to look at it and tell if it's even or not on either side. All right, so like I said, you can use calipers if you really want to get super official and make sure that you're dialed in exactly. It's a little bit harder with these taller sights, but what you can do is if you hook one side of the caliper in that little gap there where the rear sight is touching, you can then go to the other side, but touch the outside of the slide. Now, one thing that I have seen people do, these are metal, so it's going to require a little more precision. I've seen ones that are plastic. What you can do is put your calipers all the way down flat on one side, slide this over, mark the one arm where it's actually above the slide here, so you're touching the sight. And if this was removed, you can have a super accurate measurement on either side, and then just flip it over and do it reverse. And you can measure it that way, like I said, or just do it here to the outside of the slide and then back this way. I'm just eyeballing it. I've never had any issues with it not being even. You can definitely, again, look at it and see if you have light coming from the right direction. This is already actually lined up. So just stopping it where I did, I don't need to adjust it anymore. I definitely have even spacing on either side. And I'm referring to this little gap right here from the edge of the slide to where the sight is, and then again here to here. So looking at it again from each angle, depending on where the light is, that spacing is identical on both sides. So this rear sight is set, and we are now ready to move on to the front sight. So same thing for the front sight. I'm just making sure that the little glue dots that were holding this in the packaging, there's nothing on there that's going to interfere with any sort of spacing or anything. I need to take the screw that's on here out using my tool. Now this does not come with Loctite on it, but you definitely want to use Loctite. I use blue in the event I ever need to remove these because the tritium wears out or goes bad or the sight gets damaged or something bad happens. I'm not putting green or something else on there to keep this from ever coming out. I might need to remove it one day, so I don't want to set myself up for failure. So got a little bit of Loctite on there. I haven't completely globbed it. I don't want it gushing out everywhere when we tighten this down, but I've got just enough on there that it's going to get over all those threads. Same thing with your front sight. Make sure you install it the correct direction. So if I'm shooting this way, I want to line up the white circle there the same direction. I don't want to put this on backwards. Put my finger on here to hold it in place. Again, having the nice magnetized screwdriver helps me not worry about dropping this. I now just need to feed this through here, find that hole on the bottom of the front sight, and then we're just going to tighten it in there. Make sure you go slow. You don't want to cross thread this and damage your threads. So once it starts and it's going smoothly, I'm just going to keep on turning. And I'm going to keep turning until I get pressure at the end there. And I'm going to turn it a little bit more. Now, so one thing to keep in mind is I'm turning this to the right underneath, so I'm spinning it this way. This sight, there is a little bit of wiggle room in that hole in the front. It's going to want to start to turn. So you're going to have to pay attention as you're turning this to see if your sight is spinning. And if it is, back your screw off a little bit. Don't go at an extreme angle, but instead of just being on center, you can just go off a little bit, as much as it turned when you spun the screw. And then go ahead and turn your screw. It'll actually straighten it out for you, and then your sight will be straight. Again, this is going to be a little bit more difficult. You can't really use the calipers on the front sight, so you're going to have to just eyeball it. Again, I've installed enough of these, I can tell you by looking at it that that's straight. I can look down my sights and see that my front sight is lined up with my rear sight. It's not angled off to the side. Everything is lined up properly. I don't have any sort of inch-pound torque setting for you to tighten this to. Again, I just recommend tightening it by hand. You're not trying to snap the screw off, but you obviously want to get it locked in there. You don't want that front sight popping off while you're shooting or running around. And that's it. It's that simple to install sights on a pistol. And again, charging people $20 a pop for that, whether it's a gun store doing it and holding onto your gun for 2 weeks to get it done, or me taking 20 bucks and giving it back to somebody in 10 minutes. Again, definitely paid for the tool. Definitely recommend using the right tool for the job. Don't use a punch and drift this thing out. Maybe you've done 1,000 of those and great, it works for you. I'm not sure why you're watching my video. For the rest of you, I don't recommend doing that. And then again, hammering on stuff, depending on what tool you're using. If you damage one of those tritium vials that's in there, you're defeating the purpose, and you're going to have to get new sights and put them on, and you're going to spend even more money on that anyway. So like I said, buy the right tools for the right job, do it right the first time, and be done and be happy with it. And then make some money on the side charging other people for it. So anyway, with that, hopefully I answered any questions you have. If I missed something or you just have a question in general, please feel free to leave me a comment down below. I'll be glad to get back to you as soon as I possibly can, either in text form or if it requires any more specific information, I'll be glad to make a follow-up video or a short for you. So I'll stop taking up your time. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.